President Donald J. Trump is pointing fingers at the intelligence community tonight over leaks of information that forced the resignation of his national security advisor. This as the FBI is investigating Russian influence in the election. This is a fast-moving and fascinating story, but it can also be very confusing. So tonight, ABC's David Wright breaks it all down for us.
Today, alongside the Israeli Prime Minister, President Trump backed away from America's commitment to a two-state solution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One state for Israel, one for Palestine, a bedrock of U.S. foreign policy for decades.
So I'm looking at two-state and one state, and I like the one that both parties like. I'm very happy with the one that both parties like.
On any other day, with any other president, that'd be huge news. But with this administration, big news had better take a number. The administration is still reeling after the abrupt ouster of National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. Today, the president praised the man he just fired.
General Flynn is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media. As I call it, the fake media in many cases. And I think it's really a sad thing that he was treated so badly.
At the start of the week, Kellyanne Conway insisted Flynn was in the clear, even after intelligence agencies had exposed damaging details of his conversations with the Russian ambassador.
Yes, General Flynn does enjoy the full confidence of the president.
Hours later, not so much.
The evolving and eroding level of trust as a result of this situation and a series of other questionable instances is what led the president to ask for General Flynn's resignation.
The White House had known for weeks that Flynn hadn't told the vice president the truth about whether he'd ever discussed sanctions that President Obama had just imposed after Russia's meddling in the election.
What I can confirm, having spoken to him about it,
Mike Pence put his own credibility on the line. Flynn now admits he misled the vice president, that sanctions did come up in at least one call with the Russians. Senate Republicans now say they'll likely expand their ongoing investigation of Russian meddling to include Flynn.
The Intelligence Committee is already looking at Russian involvement in our election. Highly likely they'd want to take a look at this episode as well. They have the broad jurisdiction to do it.
The Flynn ouster is raising some major red flags, even in Trump's own party.
You don't know who's in charge. This Flynn situation, the whole environment is one of dysfunction in the Trump administration.
Today, there are new allegations. Flynn wasn't the only person in Trump's orbit with ties to the Russians, ties even to suspected Russian intelligence figures. Former Trump campaign officials now face renewed scrutiny, too.
Did you or anyone in your campaign have any contact with Russia?
Reporters have been asking about this for months.
Can you still say definitively that nobody on the Trump campaign, not even General Flynn, had any contact with the Russians before the election?
Now the intersection of Trump's business interests is once again under the spotlight, an issue that could be laid to rest if Trump ever released those tax returns.
I think if a Senate holds hearings on this and tries to draw and bring the lines together, if there's hearings held in Congress on this, they're going to ask for tax returns to see if there's any relationship there. So at some point, I think, when those hearings are held, that information will come out.
Congress may have better luck compelling an answer where the media has failed. A growing number of Democrats...
It's disturbing. It's highly disturbing. And it raises more and more questions that Congress has a sworn obligation to get to the bottom of.
And Republicans are now expressing concern.
Contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian intelligence officials outside the norm, that's not only big league bad, that's a game changer. And I would change my view as to what Congress should do.
Why does it matter?
Well, to me, it's not necessarily specifically about Michael Flynn. It's the dots that get connected back with Russia that's been a concern for over a year. If the dots get connected between people in the Trump orbit and the Russian folks that hacked into the election and then leaked it to WikiLeaks, if that line gets drawn clearly, Donald Trump is in a bigger problem than he's ever seen before.
If the very idea of Trump cronies colluding in a Russian plot to influence the American election sounds like something out of a Cold War spy movie...
I'm Carrie.
It's nice to see you again, Carrie.
There's an equally cinematic conspiracy theory in Trump's defense, one that seems straight out of Homeland.
Let's get business out of the way before we order. Tell me.
Spoiler alert, that's Homeland CIA Chief Dara Dahl snooping on Homeland's new president-elect, America's national security surveillance, using all the tools and tradecraft to undermine an administration whose policies they perceive as a threat.
What's not wise is peddling unverified and politically motivated horse to the press.
Sound familiar?
And the documents and papers that were illegally, I stress that, illegally leaked. Very, very unfair.
He's locked in ongoing feuds with the media, the courts, even his intelligence agencies. But there's one reporter he doesn't seem to have a problem with, tweeting, "Thank you, Eli Lake," after an otherwise critical Bloomberg journalist expressed dismay at the classified information being leaked.
Is this a big deal?
It's a very big deal. He was taken out by a campaign of leaks that had to have come from the intelligence community. And in this respect, Flynn is the appetizer, Donald Trump is the entree.
And what do you mean by that?
This is part of a strategy, I think, to destroy the Trump presidency.
Just tonight, the House Oversight Committee asked the DOJ to investigate those leaks that Trump has called the real scandal. The Russia probe, just one of several investigations the administration now faces after 3 short weeks on the job. Another, announced yesterday by the House Oversight Committee, is looking into the discussion of potentially sensitive security matters al fresco at Mar-a-Lago. The White House is certainly embattled.
How does this compare to Watergate?
Well, I think we're not at the level of Watergate because I think we don't have any sense right now that the president was personally involved in doing nefarious activities. The question is who is in his orbit. It's going to have to take the fall before the circle closes in around Donald Trump. And it's an unknown right now. We don't know how close it gets to Donald Trump.
How much does all of this matter to Trump voters? That's an entirely different question. So we came to one spot in New York where you're likely to find people who are fans of President Trump to see what they think.
He's had a tough week. His national security advisor resigned, bit of a scandal. His labor secretary pick withdrew today, bit of a scandal. Does any of that worry you?
No, I think
There's been worse.
yeah.
There's been worse.
I think we should give him a chance. He's done a lot already, and I think he's going to do more for us.
So you're keeping an open mind.
That's right.
He's tough, but we need it. I think we need to protect the people of our country. And I love Trump. I voted for him, and I'll do it again. He's got to do a better job than the last guy that was in.
This seems to be the sentiment of a lot of people, that no matter what may be going on at the moment, if he accomplishes his promise of making America great again, bringing jobs back, yes, that'll be okay with you.
For now, Trump still has their support. For now. I'm David Wright for Nightline in New York.